Hi everyone, I'm Alex Jefferies. I'm the account director at Bright and I'm also head of people and culture here at Bright.
Hello, I am Danny Whitebread, Communications Manager at Bright. And today, me and Alex are having a little chat about Pride, why it's important, and how businesses can make their Pride marketing more sincere.
Brilliant, thanks Danny. So if you could just describe to me, what is LGBTQ plus Pride and why is it celebrated annually?
So Pride Month is celebrated each year in the month of June to honour the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan. This year also marks the 50 years since the first Pride March took place in the UK on the 1st of July 1972. The Stonewall Uprising was a tipping point for the gay liberation movement in the United States and really changed the course of history for LGBTQ plus people worldwide. Each year, millions of LGBTQ plus identifying people and allies celebrate individuality, freedom of expression throughout the month. But it's good to still remember that Pride is a protest some 50 years on. I think we can get quite comfortable in the West and in the UK especially, because people are generally more accepting and tolerant, I guess, to people who are different to them. But there are still 69 countries across the globe where it is illegal to be gay, and some of those countries, it's the death penalty, um, just because of someone's sexual orientation or kind of gender identity. Um, and even though like homosexuality was decriminalized in 1967 in England, and same-sex marriage was legalized in 2014, um, there's still damning conversion therapy, which is still legal in the UK. The government this year has announced that it will ban the practice, but that ban unfortunately doesn't cover transgender and non-binary people. So I think it's still important to remember that Pride is still a protest.
Yeah, I mean it's so important, is it? We've come so far in those 50 years, but there's still a long way to go, isn't there?
Definitely. But I think we are moving forward, and I think a lot more companies are starting to realize that like the benefits of celebrating Pride and just celebrating the people um, who they employ.
Definitely.
So why is it important, something like Pride important for businesses to acknowledge?
But it's so important, isn't it? I mean, I think it's all about making sure that your business and organization is inclusive. And that's, you've got to be able to show your LGBTQ plus employees that we respect them and that, it's really important that they are able to bring their full selves to work.
Hmm.
I mean, not only for it shows the studies being shown that, it does heighten productivity in these people, but it's also something as a culture at Bright that we really want to instill in our people, that there's no judgment, that you can bring your whole selves to work, and we embrace that as a company. And I think there's really important that everyone can that every organisation is able to do that. And I know that there's still some companies that aren't quite as open with it, but I do think it's really important.
And there is that famous saying that LGBTQ plus people never stop coming out. Every day, like I myself am a gay man, and every client I meet, every kind of employer I meet, I do wonder, like, how accepting are they? And these days I've got thicker skin. I'm a bit more grown up. I go straight in and just let everyone know that I have a same-sex partner. We live together, that kind of thing. Straight in, because my way of thinking is that if an employer isn't tolerant, then I don't want to be working for them. Luckily, at Bright, we don't have that issue. I've got very supportive colleagues, and it just wasn't. It was a complete non-issue. No one even raised an eyebrow. I think they more raised an eyebrow because we both have the same name.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like I think as an employee you need to realize that you probably were a bit anxious on your first day, or that when you go into client meetings for the first time there might be, you might just need an extra, bit of support to show that we
Definitely.
you know, that, yeah, no, I think that's something that as a business we need to bear in mind, that yes, obviously we're welcoming and everything, but there's always going to be that extra level of anxiety and everything that you go through on day to day.
And that's why the visibility piece during Pride is so important. You know, if companies are outwardly showing on their social media channels and their website that they're a welcoming place for, you know, LGBT people, then if I, you know, like if I start at a new company and I see that kind of like symbolism, I see that kind of support, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable from the get-go.
Exactly. And there's this thing called pinkwashing, isn't there? Can you explain kind of us what pinkwashing means?
Yeah, so pinkwashing, also kind of called queer baiting, is very similar to greenwashing, kind of with like the whole sustainability piece for a lot of clothing brands. But this time it's about supporting the LGBTQ plus community. So like during the month of June, pretty much every brand these days changed their logo
Mm.
to incorporate the pride flag, the rainbow,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which we applaud brands for publicly supporting and creating awareness. Obviously, that visibility piece is important, but when it's just used to kind of further their own agenda, you know, there's something wrong there. So, in short, it's brands reaping the benefits of selling diversity without doing the legwork to support the community. So, if a company, for example, changes their logo but hasn't got the kind of the practices in place to support those LGBT people, or are not doing inclusivity and, you know, equality, diversity, and inclusivity work, then, you know, it's just insincere. Um, so hopefully, you know, companies are getting a little bit better about putting the legwork behind either donating to like LGBT causes and charities, but also these days it's more about kind of the policies around
Mm-hmm.
hiring, especially transgender people who need that extra support. And things like parental leave as well, you know, a lot of companies have maternal cover and leave, but that doesn't include, you know, same-sex couples. So I think companies need to be looking at their own processes and how they can make them more inclusive.
Yeah, definitely. So this is a term I actually hadn't heard before. So it's actually really interesting to kind of hear, because you can see the companies that do pink wash. It's quite easy to tell, isn't it?
Mm,
It's like it's there for a month, that it's gone, and then it's never mentioned, or there's nothing for the rest of the year. And I think, it's really important that it's Pride isn't just a month long thing. It is a month long thing, sorry, but it's also something that has to be instilled in everything that you do, like you say, all your policies. And actually, you saying that, Danny, I'm going to look at, obviously our paternity would be covered, it's just not highlighted in the employee handbook at the moment. So
mm.
that's definitely something that I would look at now, going forward after this
But
this
like,
conversation.
yeah, like no company is perfect, and I think companies need to get better at accepting, you know, there's no better time to start than now. You know, if you haven't got it in line, no one's going to come around and, you know, stake you. You have to just learn and be like, okay, yeah, put my hands up. We're not great at this, but we can be better, and we're going to put the work in to be better. And I think that's what people just want to see.
Yeah, and I think it's very much about having a two-way conversation. It's not just me assuming what people are going to want from the company. It's asking our employees or our prospective employees, what is it that we can do to make it easier for you.
hmm So like, kind of, how do you make your either marketing or kind of the work you do around Pride sincere?
So for me, I think it's all about, I've heard this saying a lot, knowledge is power, and it is. The more you know about the cause you're supporting, the more effective that support can be. And if I just bring it back to the point I just made about, making sure that we do have these two-way conversations, we really understand what it is that we're supporting and what we can do to make it better.
hmm
And I think for marketing, one of the best ways your brand can show genuine support during the month is by highlighting how the company's internal policies and practices really embody the ideals that the Pride Month represents. And like you said, not every company is going to be perfect, but it's the wanting to learn, wanting to change, wanting to make sure that your company is inclusive, and involving people in those decision making
Yeah,
practices, and validating what we're planning to do and making sure that it does align to what we should be doing.
absolutely. And this covers everything kind of the EDI space. If you're doing work around racial inclusion and disability awareness, like involving those voices and lifting those voices up is so important. I think it's easy for us to assume, and I think especially if you've got a group of people who all look and sound the same, that you are doing good work, but I think it's easy to kind of get stuck in an echo chamber, when actually you're not addressing some of the real issues.
Exactly, yeah. And like you say, you could be focused on something that's two-sided, and it is, like you said, all about diversity, equality, and inclusion for everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's really important to make sure that you are listening to everyone, and
And
making sure that it's all inclusive.
hmm and so, like, why is diversity, equity, and equality and inclusion important for internal and external communications, especially?
I think it's really important that your company understands what you're doing as an organization. So internally, it's really important to make sure that you're being transparent with everything that you're doing and reflecting on what it is that you could be doing a bit more of. And then also, like, externally, it's really important for an employee who might be looking for a new job that they can feel that they are going to be comfortable where they're going. Um, so it's all about making sure that how we work internally is reflected externally, as well. And that could translates into like words, pictures, and you can reflect on people that we work for and with, and making sure that we enforce it, that this is how we work,
Mm,
with our clients as well as each other. And now more than ever before, consumers, clients are paying more attention to how brands are telling their story and who they are including and excluding. So it is really important that you are embracing, everyone inclusively. And just, yeah, I mean, I think as long as you're doing what you should be doing, then the external message is a lot easier and more sincere, and really transparent.
absolutely. And that covers more than just kind of comms as well. Like, I think, like what panels, if you're putting, people on panels at events, like, are they gender diverse? Are they
Hmm.
ethnically diverse? Think about intersectionality. People can be, um, a mix of different. I think people get stuck being like, oh, okay, well, I've got two men, two women, but like, think about how that could be inclusion can be better. Better representation increases engagement from different communities. If you're only targeting one set of people, then your marketing isn't going to be kind of engaged with, by the masses.
100%. So, Danny, if we're going to leave this podcast, what are the 4 best ways businesses can ensure their communications are inclusive?
Okay, so like number one, don't make assumptions. Ask staff how they identify, and try to use non-gendered language, especially in your communications and emails. The
Mm.
dear sirs are ancient history. I used to work in civil engineering, and a lot of the women engineers that I used to work with used to get really fed up with kind of like street signs saying men working overhead.
Oh, yeah, of
Simple
course.
language like that, which just is completely
Mm.
kind of exclusive of a huge range of like brilliant women engineers. But I think those things are really quite simply overlooked. So
Yeah.
just having a little inward think about how you're gendering your language. But also like number two, diversifying your team. As we said, like take the time to reflect of who you're placing on boards. Are they gender diverse? Are they ethnically diverse? And also consider intersectionality. Number three, be mindful of your own reference group. This is the one that I think is most important. We tend to default to our own lived experiences when trying to process things which are unfamiliar. We think about, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or, this is not how I would react, or I don't find that offensive.
Hmm.
Um, like you've just got to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but also, take an outward step and look inwards. And then finally, number four, is just recognise the need for equality, diversity, and inclusion initiatives beyond Pride.
Hmm.
Just celebrate your kind of people's individuality and uniqueness all year round, but make sure that's backed up by the processes and procedures. And make sure you're really supporting them and it's not just at face value.
Great, thank you, Danny. I think that kind of summarizes all the stuff that we've covered in the podcast, and it's a really good, four quite easy steps that companies can take to really, elevate their inclusivity as much as they can. So thank you for that.
You are welcome. And as I said, there's no kind of perfect recipe. You've just got to start somewhere, start small, um, and just
Yeah.
start making smaller changes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's also a bit about being transparent. So
Mhm.
if you know that you haven't got the right policies at the moment, then be transparent with your employees and let them know that, and let them know that you are improving them.
Absolutely. And well, thank you
Yeah,
for listening, and thanks for joining me, Alex.
it's all right. It's happy to.
And well, we're going to go join this lovely, warm, sunny day. Um,
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast, and we'll hear from you soon.
right, thank you.